Now, unlike Christmas, when it's the season to be jolly, it seems like this winter is the season to be coughing. Because that's what it sounds like all over Joburg. As temperatures started plummeting, the anecdotal stories of everybody and their uncle having bronchitis and the like just seemed to skyrocket. Is this infection of the ear, nose and throat triple threat, along with a good old chest congestion, just part and parcel of winter life? Or is there something we can do to avoid it? Let's ask our resident GP, Dr. Donny Fick, who's not in studio this time. He joins us virtually all the way from Knysna. Dr. Donny, thank you for your time this morning. You have to give us context of why you were there. I know you don't eat oysters, so you're not there to eat the oysters at the Oyster Festival, sadly for me, because I'm an oyster fan. You were there to do what they call the most beautiful half marathon in the Southern Hemisphere. How did it go?
Good morning, Marcel. How are you doing? No, it went very well. My wife dragged me all the way to Knysna to run through the Knysna forest in the Knysna forest half marathon, which was hard. It was really, really tough, but we survived. We're still married, and I think, yeah, it's good.
It was more kringe in die bos than a record-breaking half marathon. I mean, Donny, you doing these kinds of things in winter also brings its own risks, doesn't it? In as much as we've got far more people paying attention to doing their exercise, especially post-pandemic, people are more aware of it. We've got lots of weekend and social runners and cyclists and that kind of thing. But we also need to be careful at this time of year that you don't do that when perhaps your chest and other parts of your body are not ticking along as they should.
No, I've always told patients that, like, if you're not feeling well, please do not exercise. Yes, we do promote a very active lifestyle, but when it comes to exercising when you're not well, please do not do it. If you've got any sniffle, any slight cough, please don't go and run marathons or do any physical activity. Your body needs to heal. And sadly, there was a case of that 2 weeks ago in my practice where I was aware and one of my patients or someone else contracted swine flu and then 10 days later went for a run and then passed away from it in his early 40s. So we don't want people running when they're sick.
A common cold can be that dangerous if you're not looking after yourself. Let's talk a little bit about this season. Are we just being melodramatic by thinking that it just seems that this year everybody's had bronchitis? Is it because it's post-pandemic, so our immune system isn't that great? What has been your experience in your practice with regards to people coming in with any kind of infection in the ear, nose, throat area?
So we're definitely seeing much more numbers than we have. I think even pre-pandemic, I think 2019, pre-COVID, I think we're seeing more upper respiratory tract infections than we did then. And I think and the severity of the infection seems to be worse as well. My thinking behind it is this is the first proper winter that we're not wearing masks. It's the first proper flu season where we've demasked and not used hand sanitizer. And I think we're just getting used to that. I think a year ago, I still remember we were still wearing masks, if I'm not mistaken. So it shows that, yes, these respiratory infections are spread via what we call droplet form, where people breathe on each other. And when we were wearing masks, it seemed it wouldn't spread as frequently as it's doing now.
Now, is there something that we can do to try and avoid it? We know, obviously, COVID taught us washing hands, sanitize, wearing masks and that kind of thing. But now, you know, back to normal life. People are in offices. There's air conditioning there. We're sitting close to each other. What should we be paying attention to do? What can we do to avoid these kinds of infections?
I think the first thing starts off, if you're sick, please avoid other human beings. I think that's the one thing COVID taught us, that if you're feeling unwell, if you've got a high temperature, please don't go to work. I know lots of people still are like, it's not COVID, so I can still go and socialize and go to work, but don't. And if you are coming into contact with people, the one thing COVID has taught us as well is wear a mask, keep your distance if you are the infected one. And the main problems this season have been the influenza viruses. So it's never too late to get a vaccine. I mean, we do promote getting vaccinated a bit earlier, like in March, but it's still not too late to have that done. So some of the same measures that we had during the COVID times of vaccinate against the influenza virus, stay away from people if you're sick, and yeah, that's my advice.
I will ask you that advice. I had bronchitis a few weeks ago, and then my little girl got sick, because we all know that little people also spread these things amongst themselves. It just is part and parcel of toddlerhood that I'm still getting I'm still very, very desperately getting used to, because it's exhausting, because it just seems to come. Let's talk about the little people for a while, because that seems to come in cycles of about 6 weeks. We're just back on our feet. The post-nasal drip isn't happening that much, so the little person is not coughing that much at night. They go back to school, and 2 weeks later, boom, we're back to see Dr. Donny. And, oh, yes, it's another throat infection. Is that just something that we need to get used to, and is it a cycle of 6 weeks? Or has it got to do with that perhaps other parents are not keeping the kids at home when they should be at a certain part of the infection?
Yeah, I agree. I think little kids don't know how to behave themselves around other little kids. They get excited, they touch each other, they share juice bottles. It's almost something that's unavoidable, right? I think if you're sending your child back to school, they're all going to be in each other's spaces, sharing things, drooling on each other. I mean, the amount of kids I see just with that, like, runny nose down the side of their cheek.
That silver streak.
They don't have this. They don't have the same they don't have the same knowledge that we have. So it's almost unavoidable. I see so many mothers and fathers bringing their kids to the doctor, and they're like, "I'm so sick of seeing you, Donny." And I was like, "Don't worry, they'll soon outgrow it, and we'll see them again when they're 18." So it is very prevalent in that age group, and then we'll see them again much later on in life.
I must apologize.
So
I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask a question that's not going to be really nice for people who are watching us right now with their coffee and their sisters. Does the color of the mucus of the little person make a difference about how you should be treating their infection during that time?
No, I think that's what. Yes, great question for breakfast. But I don't think there is a myth that people say, okay, now if my mucus is yellow, now I need an antibiotic. It's weird how in culture we were taught that way. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, you can still have yellow mucus, and it can be a viral infection. You don't need an antibiotic. But I often hear people come and say, we waited. Now the mucus is yellow. Now, doctor, you have to prescribe an antibiotic. And obviously, we tread the antibiotics waters very carefully, because I think appropriate use of antibiotics is very important, and not everyone that has a runny nose needs or warrants antibiotic treatment.
Okay, one final question. I had bronchitis a few weeks ago. Seems to be cleared up now. My household is healthy for right now, for this minute. Can I still go and have a flu jab?
Yes, you can. Okay. As I said, it's never too late to have the flu vaccine. They are still available. I think we have them at our clinic. And I think that does offer you a lot of protection against getting severe illness from these really bad influenza viruses that we're seeing this season.
Very, very bad. And I've seen whole families that I know just taking weeks to get back on their feet with the flu. Influenza A, I think it is, this year. That's really wreaking havoc.
Yeah, that's the very prevalent one that is doing the rounds at the moment.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Dr. Donny, just double checking, you didn't take part in the oyster eating competition that's been held there this weekend.
No. As I said earlier, like, oysters are not. I don't know. It's not my thing. So I've gone to the calamari and stayed far away from the oysters.
Well, give Neisner our best. I remember the last time I was at the Neisner Oyster Festival. I counted. I think I ate 52 oysters in that 3-day or 4-day weekend. I was very proud of myself at that time. I'm not feeling the same way right now when I think about it. Dr. Donny Fick, our resident GP, joining us all the way from Neisner. Some great advice there for these colds, these flus, these snotty noses and coughs that we are dealing with at this very chilly time of year.